Welcome to Wesley Impact. Now, I'm Keith Garner. How important is it to look not only after your own mental health, but also be prepared to help those around you? I'm glad you're with us today, and I always look forward to sharing with you. October in Australia is Mental Health Month, and over the next few weeks I'd like to look at some of the things that we can do each day to not only be mindful of our own mental health, but to be aware of people around us who may be suffering in some way from some kind of illness. With the ongoing impact of COVID restrictions this year, perhaps more than others, it's important not only to start to keep conversations going about where we talk through struggles, share openly and honestly with people who we can trust, and to be a listening ear when it's needed. It's important more than ever. If you'd like to talk to someone about anything you hear on today's programme, please don't hesitate to call Lifeline on 13 11 14, 13 11 14. Someone is standing by right now and ready to take your call. Earlier this year, Wesley Mission and Suicide Prevention Australia released a white paper look at reducing distress in the community following the COVID-19 pandemic. We recorded a seminar, a webinar as we call it these days, where I was joined by National Suicide Prevention Advisor to the Prime Minister, Christine Morgan, a former member of our staff at Wesley Mission, and the Director of Policy and Advocacy and Government Relations at Suicide Prevention Australia, Rebecca Burdick Davies. And I'd like to share a clip from that webinar with you later in the show. We'll be joined in the studio by Leah Brett, who will sing Sacred Space, and I'll share some thoughts on another important word in this series, a powerful word, and that word is trust. It makes sense today when we think of people who we can or cannot turn to with confidence, especially at a time of trouble and despair, to think of trust. But first, I mentioned the Lifeline number earlier today, 13 11 14, and there's someone who is standing by ready to take your call right now. You may not know that Lifeline began as a work of Wesley Mission by one of my predecessors, the Reverend Alan Walker, and went on to become an international work. At Wesley Mission, we operate 2 Lifeline call centres in Sydney in the city and in Sutherland, staffed primarily by volunteers who give their time to the benefit of others. This is the story of one of our volunteers, John Cottrell.
Hello, Lifeline. How can we help you?
I feel so hopeless.
I really need someone to talk to.
I don't know where to go for help. I feel like my world is falling apart.
My marriage is over. There's no way out for me.
I'm just so lonely. Is there anyone who actually cares?
I just don't know what to do anymore.
I've got no one to turn to.
I volunteer at Lifeline because I consider each person equal and I view people all as important. That person that calls through needs to be valued as someone that's as important as the Prime Minister, important as the Premier, important as anyone in society. A caller can be your neighbour. It could be someone from an affluent part of society, or it can come from a poor part of society. There is no typical caller. It can be anyone. So it's not just people that are down and out, and it's also not people that are always suicidal. It may be people that are lonely, people that need to talk to someone, people that need just an ear to listen. When I take the call, I try to focus only on the caller and give my 100% attention to that person for however long it may be. It may be for 5 minutes, it may be for an hour. All the callers that ring make me think about life, and on a personal note, they make me feel appreciative of my situation in life. Two calls come to mind. First one was the help seeker at the end was contemplating suicide but wanted help. I asked her if she would be prepared for a Lifeline to call someone into her situation, and she gave permission. The last I heard of that was the help arriving, and I knew that there was someone there to help her. It makes me feel that I'm giving back to society. I'm giving back, and I'm having the opportunity to use part of my time now in retirement helping others and making a difference.
If you would like to learn more about Wesley Mission, visit wesleymission.org.au. You can find help in our community services, connect with our church and congregations, discover a volunteer role that suits you, stay up to date on the latest news and information, donate to support our work, and help make a positive difference in your community. You can also connect with us on social media and subscribe to receive the latest news and information about Wesley Mission directly into your inbox. Visit wesleymission.org.au.
Contact details once again are on the screen if we can be of any help to you or a loved one in any way. Visit the website for more information about all we do, or send us an email, or someone from Wesley Mission will be in touch. As I mentioned earlier, Wesley Mission and Suicide Prevention Australia released a white paper looking at reduced distress in the community following the COVID-19 pandemic. And we also recorded a webinar. This is a very important issue, and it affects many areas of our community, and one we must not ignore. Let's take a short clip really, from that webinar, where I was joined by the Director of Policy and Advocacy, Government Relations and Suicide Prevention Australia, Rebecca Burdick Davies, and also the National Suicide Prevention Advisor to the Prime Minister, Christine Morgan. Our intention is to begin a conversation. It is to make people aware of the issues that are so important in relation to distress in our community, and our intention to seek to reduce that distress in the things that we're about. We've partnered together to produce this paper because we believe it's best talked about together, and a partnership of the kind that we've engaged here is certainly something that's important in the light of the present pandemic across Australia and indeed across our world. So we're talking about COVID-19, obviously, and the effects of that, and where we are at this point in time. So Christine, I'm going to ask you, first of all, there's no doubt that this is a watershed event. None of us sat here could have imagined what this is going to be like. What do you think, if I were to ask you the question, how are we faring, do you think?
Oh, look, what a good question. What a good question. And I think it's really relevant to be saying, how are we faring at the moment? Not just go back to, say, February, when it all started, when we were all sort of in this cataclysmic, my goodness, we didn't even know what was happening. So how are we faring? We are faring still in circumstances which give us really heightened anxiety. That anxiety may have shifted a little bit for some of us from being really frightened about our physical security, though some of that's coming back with what's happening at the moment with further restrictions coming back in. It's very much around our economy, it's very much around our livelihood, it's around the future for our children. It's anxiety, Keith, it's really getting to us. And I think that whether we came into this with mental health challenges or not, I think it would be hard to say that any Australian mental health wasn't affected.
You've just mentioned some of those things like economics and issues. I think that's one of the important things, is not just to put this in a box and say we're just going to talk about this as though this is a health issue. That's right. Or it's all of it, isn't it?
It's all of it. And I think that was one of the cataclysmic things about it, that whilst it was an illness that was affecting us, the way we had to manage it, the way we had to respond to it, has had this effect across every part of our lives. You know, the way where we live, how we work in those places, how we work with each other, how we interact. I often say, Keith, we came off the bushfires in January, and the palpable lesson from that everybody said was, we want to connect with each other. We want to be really close. You know, we relied on our neighbours, and there we were 2 weeks later, stay away. So just how we even grapple with that is pretty amazing.
And I suppose the question that I just want to conclude before I turn to Rebecca in her particular area is, how do you think we're faring in terms of a new danger that's around. Do you think, have we got a bit too lax about the whole thing?
Look, I don't know if we've got lax. I think we've been reminded that this is not something that we can necessarily eliminate at this stage. I think we're faring in a number of ways. I think that it is certainly for some people brought out new depths of resilience, but for many others, it's also brought out, I don't know how to do this. And I have heard from so many people that they have had to reach out for the first time to others. And the way we enable that, the way we respond to that is so critical in terms of being able to help people find the ways and the strategies to get through.
Rebecca uses a different kind of world with the same interest and concern. How do you think we're dealing with it? Do you think we're dealing with it well?
Well, I think it's difficult to give an assessment because it's just, as Christine mentioned, this is a black swan event. We've never seen a crisis like this before, certainly in my lifetime, but I think within the lifetimes of most Australians now. I mean, obviously there's Australians who've lived through world wars, but this is a pandemic that we haven't seen since the Spanish influenza, which was back in the 20s. But I think there's a lot of things we can be proud of in Australia. So our government, first of all, really sprang into action a lot more quickly than governments internationally. So we had a coordinated public health response, and we can see that with the way that COVID-19 caseloads are being managed. And we had an incredibly coordinated response from a mental health perspective. So we're very privileged to have Christine here to speak with us in this discussion today. We saw the entire government and mental health sector swing into action to ensure that people had a number of different options to go to for support. So I think there's a lot to be proud of in the way that we've responded. But I guess if I reflect on the reasons why we embarked on this report, we can't sort of be static in the way that we've responded to this situation. And I think coming from the perspective of Suicide Prevention Australia, as a national peak body, we thought, well, here's an opportunity to inform government or perhaps inform some of the considerations for government in the next few months. And I think it's these next few months that will be really critical. That was a flavour, I guess, of the research that we reviewed as well from previous pandemics like SARS and H1N1 virus. The first few months of the pandemic, people really came together in the community and came together as one. It's those months afterwards where some people feel the most acute impact, and that's what we want to assist and support.
And we're glad to work with you. And one of the areas that we've been involved in is setting up a whole host of networks from Wesley Mission across the country. And one of the things that's certainly true is that people have had to deal with this issue in the locale. They've had to deal with it in isolation, not just an individual isolation, but organisational isolations as well. And so that's been a great, it's good to work with you guys. Do you expect things to change in the coming months?
I wish I had a crystal ball, but of course things will change because, I mean, we've just seen, I think 3 weeks ago when we thought of the title for this report, which is perhaps not as apt as it was when we thought of it, we felt Australia at least was emerging from the pandemic, like New Zealand did. I think New Zealand's basically eliminated COVID-19, and then we've seen the unfortunate situation unfold in Victoria. So I can't really forecast where we're going to head, but I think from the perspective of reducing distress, we can expect, I think quite confidently, this is what our economists are telling us across Australia, we can expect there to be some impacts on business, we can expect there to be impacts on people's jobs, and I think that's a critical concern for Wesley Mission, who we were so proud to partner with on this report, and it's certainly a critical concern for us because we do know there's a relationship between people's well-being and their security of their finances and employment.
I hope you found that conversation both insightful and interesting. And you can watch the entire webinar online on the Wesley Mission website and on our social media channels. The details are on the screen for you now. Also, if you're struggling and would like to speak with someone, please call Lifeline now on 13 11 14. Someone's standing by now to make you available to talk to somebody real. Let's welcome now Leah Brett and the Wesley Impact Band to sing Sacred Space.
Starts to blow, when the lightning starts to strike, starts to roll, when this life becomes a fight, you are where I put my gloves down when I'm running out of time. You are where I go to slow down. You are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Where I go to be moved, where I go to be seen. Your love makes me new. In your presence I heal. Ooh, yeah. You are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And no walls, and no war, no cause, no weapons formed, no love, what find. You are where I go to hide. You are where I go to heal. You are where I go to feel, to remember what is real. You are my favorite place. You are my sacred space. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You are. You are. Yeah.
Trust is a very important Christian thought, and so as I continue this series looking at words, let me read some words from John's Gospel, words of Jesus as we find them there in the Gospel, the 14th chapter, verses 1 through to verse 14. Let not your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be with me and where I am. You know the way to the place where I'm going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you really know me, you will know my Father as well. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Philip said, Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us. Jesus answered, don't you know me, Philip, even after I've been among you for such a long time? Anyone who's seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and that the Father is in me? The words I say to you, I do not speak on my own authority. Rather, it is the Father living in me who is doing his work. Believe me when I say that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. or at least believe on the evidence of the works themselves. Very truly, I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I've been doing, and they will also do even greater things than these, because I'm going to the Father. And I will do whatever you ask me in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it. Trust is a responsive word, you know. We sing the old gospel hymn, some of you may remember it. Trust and obey, for there's no other way to be happy in Jesus but to trust and obey. We place our confidence, our ability into the hands of God. We entrust them. We use that word. We trust to him. At the beginning of our discipleship, we trust him. When we choose to follow him, when we hear the call of Christ upon our lives, there's a sense in which we trust him. You see, trust is relational. It's not just something that's in the heart. It's a relational, it's a handing over. And trust in families and friendships are also very important. It is closely related to our everyday living, to love. We trust those we love. It is the foundation of all real meaningful friendship and in families. You don't have to say to somebody who you work closely with, you love, or somebody who has a real relationship with you, can I trust you? In a meaningful relationship, trust comes naturally. It's part of what it means to live life. And at the heart of the Christian faith is a real sense of trust. God has called us into a trustful relationship with himself. We therefore are prepared to entrust ourselves to God. Corrie ten Boom, you have that amazing story to tell, especially of the camps in her own life and how she knew what it was to be separated from those she loved. She said this, and I find this one of the best examples of trust. I've held many things in my hands, and I've lost them all. But whatever I have placed in God's hands, that I still possess. That's what trust is. When you trust, you keep. Not because you are keeping it to yourself, but by the trust, you gain a new sense of confidence, a new sense of purpose, and you find a real and meaningful way. Therefore, those who trust in God's love can live life with both confidence and hope. Do you have that kind of confidence and hope as you trust God? Trust God in a real way in your own life? Well, it's certainly been true down the years that people have been able to put their trust and confidence in God. There's another old gospel hymn that was sung and written many years ago. Augustus Toplady wrote words in the hymn Rock of Ages. Nothing in my hand I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. That really is for me what it matters. And all the years that I've sought to live out the discipleship through these programs as we shared with you the good news of Jesus Christ, we know at the heart of it all is trust. And as we saw in that interview, we're living through some very challenging times, aren't we? We need, like never before, to be a people of trust who entrust ourselves to God for the future, because we need him like we have never needed him. And in our world, as people are concerned and worried, not only about the pandemic, but what the future is going to look like for our emerging societies, we entrust ourselves to the God that is bigger than I. We trust ourselves to a God that is higher than I, that is so much stronger than we are. And we trust him. And we know that in the trusting, he will keep us. He will keep us safe. He will keep us secure. He won't protect us so that nothing happens to us. But what he will do is throw his arms around us to give us confidence, to be able to look to the future with a sense of hope. Are you ready to put yourself and your trust into God's keeping and God's hands? That is certainly true. It's what Jesus was really saying to his disciples in those words in John's Gospel. Trust in God.
If you would like to contact Keith and find out more about today's program, write to us at Wesley Mission, Post Office Box A 5555, Sydney South 1235, or you can send us an email to impacttv@wesleymission.org.au. On our website, you can catch up on past episodes of Wesley Impact, find out more about our work, read online magazines and articles, and connect with us on social media. You can also connect through Keith's blog and stay up to date on all the latest news and information from Wesley Mission, wesleymission.org.au.
Thank you once again for joining us and making us part of your day. I hope you enjoyed the clip from the webinar looking at the reducing of stress during this COVID-19 pandemic. Join us at the same time, the same channel next week as we'll look at Mental Health Month, another perspective, looking at our work in suicide prevention across Australia. You'd like to talk to somebody struggling in any way, remember Lifeline 13 11 14. Somebody's there now. Goodbye and God bless you.
Wesley Mission answers over 39,000 calls each year through Lifeline, Sydney and Sutherland. To find out more, visit wesleymission.org.au.